You ever get that feeling, like you're part of a family portrait but someone just quietly erased your face? I'm Rachel, 36. I install smart home systems for a living, wiring up motion sensors, syncing thermostats, crawling through attics with a flashlight in my teeth. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. And today, I'm carefully wrapping a vintage tea set in soft tissue paper for my mum, not for her birthday, just because it's Thanksgiving this week, and I've been thinking maybe this year will feel like home again. See, I don't come from a broken family. I come from one that looks perfect from the outside. Colonial-style house, Sunday pot roasts, polite smiles at church. But somewhere along the way, I became the quiet shadow in their perfect little picture. Emily, my younger sister, was always the one people noticed. She's a pediatrician, engaged to some guy named Lucas who owns a dental clinic. I've met him once. He talked about himself for 20 straight minutes. I don't think my parents ever meant to push me out. Not out loud. They just stopped inviting me in. Still, I keep showing up in little ways, like this tea set I found at an antique shop off I-94. Mum used to love ones with tiny violets on the side. I've had it cleaned, polished, boxed. I even found a ribbon in her favourite colour, sage green. I bought Dad a replica of the old Union Station from his childhood. He used to talk about the trains, remember? It's sitting here beside me now, both gifts ready on the table. My living room smells like cinnamon and soldering wire, a mix of candles and tools. I spent the morning adjusting someone's garage sensors and spent the afternoon imagining this weekend. Laughter, turkey, cranberry sauce, maybe even that board game we used to play. So I call, just to confirm what time to come over. And that's when my mum says it. This year, maybe don't come, Rachel. It's just, well, Emily's fiancé's family will be there. It's important to make a good impression. You know how appearances matter. There's this pause, like she knows what she's doing. Then she adds, you'd probably feel out of place anyway with your tools and truck and all. I don't say much, just something like, got it. But my hands are cold. I hang up and stare at the tea set. Sage green ribbon and all. It's weird, right? How even silence can feel like someone yelling. I've watched revenge stories on YouTube where people get rich and come back to stun their families. But I never wanted revenge. I just wanted a seat at the table. Not a spotlight, just a chair. But this year there's no chair. And maybe that's where everything begins. The silence after Mum hung up was so loud I swear I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. I just sat there staring at the ribbon on the tea set. That sage green suddenly looked dull, like hope fading. I wasn't mad. Not yet. More like hollow. You ever feel like you've done everything right, but somehow still end up in the wrong? I kept replaying her words. You'd probably feel out of place anyway, with your tools and truck and all. Not, we miss you, not, you belong here, just a soft rejection dressed up in politeness. And the worst part, it wasn't even the first time. Growing up, Emily got the spotlight, always the shining one. Gifted programs, piano recitals, custom birthday cakes. Me? I got hand-me-down jeans and you're older, you can handle it. When I told them I wanted to go to trade school instead of college, Mom looked at me like I'd just thrown away my whole future. She actually said, "You're smart, Rachel. Why waste it under a house fixing wires?" But I liked the work. Still do. I like using my hands. I like solving problems. I like being able to walk into a stranger's home and leave them safer than before. I just never realised that not fitting their version of success meant not fitting in at all. So I sat there for a while, watching the shadows shift on the wall. The room felt colder, even with the heater humming. I thought about driving over anyway, just showing up, but I could already hear the awkward silence, the quick glances, the forced smiles, and I couldn't do that to myself again. I don't know if any of you watching have ever been uninvited from your own family table, not because you fought or failed, but because you didn't look right for the photos. If you have, I see you. And if you're still hoping they'll come around, I get it. I did too. But sometimes they don't, and that's not your fault. I stood up, took the tea set off the table, and placed it back in the cabinet. I didn't throw it, I didn't cry, I just put it away. And for the first time in years, I started to wonder, what would life look like if I stopped chasing their approval and started choosing myself instead? A couple days passed after that phone call. I kept myself busy, installed 2 security camera systems, fixed a garage motor, even helped an elderly couple reset their entire smart lighting. But every time I sat down, even just to eat lunch, the silence crept back in. It wasn't just the rejection that hurt, it was what it meant. See, a year ago I made a mistake. I printed a financial report, one of my quarterly statements, at my parents' house. Their printer was better, and I needed it for a mortgage meeting. I thought I'd closed the tab, but apparently I didn't. Later that night, Mum asked me, too casually, "You've been investing in real estate?" I paused. "Yeah, a little." She raised an eyebrow. "Looks like more than a little." I just smiled and said, "It's nothing." And she never brought it up again. Back then I thought maybe she didn't understand what she'd seen. Or maybe she respected my privacy. I was wrong. She understood, and she remembered. That's the part that stings now. They knew. They knew I was doing well. They knew I wasn't some broke technician with oil-stained jeans. But when it came time to plan Thanksgiving, they still crossed me out. Because I wasn't shiny, I wasn't Emily. She's got the white coat, the fiancé with perfect teeth, the Instagrammable life. Me? I drive a truck that rattles at red lights and wear boots that don't match my coat. Apparently that's not enough to sit at their table, even if I could buy the whole damn table. And you know what? That realization hurt more than any insult. It wasn't that I was overlooked out of ignorance, I was overlooked with full knowledge. That's when something shifted in me, not rage, not bitterness, just a quiet snap, like a thread finally pulling loose after being stretched too long. I stopped trying to rationalize it. I stopped hoping it was just a mistake. It wasn't. It was deliberate. And it had always been this way. I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you've ever felt like you had to succeed just to be seen, I've been there. And if you're still breaking your back trying to be enough for people who already decided you're not, you might want to ask yourself, what's the price of being visible to people who choose not to look? That night, I poured myself a cup of chamomile tea and stood by the window. Outside, snow had started to fall. Everything looked peaceful. Inside, I felt something else. Not peace, not anger, just clarity. I wasn't going back. 3 days after Thanksgiving, I heard a knock at my door. Not the soft, polite kind either. This was the kind of knock that says, "We're not leaving until you answer." I wiped my hands on a rag, had just finished testing a backup generator for a client, and opened the door. There they were, Mum, Dad, and Emily, all bundled up in wool coats like a postcard. Mum smiled too quickly. "We were in the area. Thought we'd stop by." Emily chimed in, "You've been hard to reach." I stepped aside without saying much. I wasn't mad. Not yet. I was curious. They settled into the living room like nothing had happened. Dad complimented my coffee table. Emily picked at her gloves. Mom kept scanning the room like she was taking inventory. That's when she saw the tea set I'd boxed up. Still wrapped, still untouched. She blinked, but didn't mention it. Then came the line, the one I somehow knew was coming. "Rachel, your name came up in conversation the other day," Mum said lightly. "Emily and Lucas, they're expanding the clinic. It's a big opportunity." I waited. "Thing is," Emily picked up, "the bank needs a co-signer, just for the paperwork. You know how hard it is to get approved for commercial property loans these days." I nodded slowly. "And you came here because of that?" Mum leaned forward, her voice dipped into that familiar, reasonable tone she used when asking for favours she didn't want to call favours. "Sweetheart, you're in a great position. No kids, steady work, some smart investments. You'd qualify in a heartbeat." There it was. Not an apology, not a "we missed you," just an ask. They didn't come here for me. They came for my credit score. I looked at Emily. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I wasn't invited to Thanksgiving," I said flatly. Mum waved it off. "Let's not dwell on that, it was just one night." Dad added, "This is bigger than dinner, Rachel. This is family." Family. That word again, always weaponized when it's convenient. "So let me get this straight," I said quietly. "I'm too embarrassing to bring to dinner, but not too embarrassing to attach to a 6-figure loan?" The room went quiet. No one denied it. I stood. "I'm not co-signing anything. And I think you should go." Mum started to say something, but I was already walking toward the door. My voice stayed calm. "I fixed your fence. I replaced your garage lights. I called every Thanksgiving. I kept showing up, even when you didn't. But this is the last time I let you treat me like a spare part." They left. No hugs, no arguments, just stunned silence and the soft click of the door closing behind them. I stood there for a moment, hand still on the doorknob. And for the first time, I didn't feel invisible, I felt done. They didn't call, not the next day, not the next week, but on a random Tuesday evening, my phone buzzed. A message from Mum. "Can we come talk? We just want to clear the air." I sat with that text for almost an hour before replying. "Fine. 1 hour. That's it." I shouldn't have said yes, but a part of me still wanted to believe this time would be different, that maybe, just maybe, they came to make things right. They arrived early, again dressed nice, like they always are when appearances matter. Emily didn't come this time, just Mom and Dad. They sat across from me on the living room couch, same spot as before. Mum started. "Rachel, I think we got off on the wrong foot." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean when you uninvited me from Thanksgiving, or when you showed up asking me to back a loan?" She flinched. "That's not fair." Dad jumped in. "We didn't mean to hurt you, we thought you'd understand." Understand what? That I wasn't family enough to sit at the table, but useful enough to fund the family business? I shook my head. "You only ever show up when you need something. You think I haven't noticed that?" "We raised you," Mum said, voice tightening. "We did our best, and now that you've got money, you think you're better than us?" There it was, the truth. It wasn't about hurt feelings, it was about control. They couldn't handle the fact that I'd built something they didn't understand on my own. "I don't think I'm better," I said, calm but sharp. "I just finally know what I'm worth, and I'm not giving it away to people who only remember me when it benefits them." Dad looked angry. "So you're just going to cut us out?" I didn't raise my voice. "No, you already did that. I'm just making it official." They left without saying goodbye. And this time, I didn't watch them go. I walked into the kitchen, boiled some water, pulled down the old tea set I'd bought for Mom, and I used it for myself. I sat by the window, sipping quietly. And for the first time, it felt like that chair at the table I'd always waited for. I'd just built my own, and it was exactly where I belonged. A year later, I got married. Nothing fancy, just a quiet ceremony in a park near my house. Late autumn, the leaves gold and brown, crisp beneath our shoes. The kind of weather that makes you zip your coat up just a little higher, but still smile when the sun hits your face. Her name's June. We met at the hardware store, believe it or not. She asked me for help picking out a voltage tester. I laughed. She didn't. Turns out she actually did need help. We've been laughing ever since. She's gentle but sharp, creative but grounded. She doesn't care that I wear steel-toed boots or that my truck squeaks in reverse. She only ever asks one thing: "Are you happy?" That day, as we said our vows under a string of hanging lights, I looked out at the guests, just a few close friends, co-workers, neighbours, and behind them, 3 empty chairs. I'd set them out deliberately, one for my mother, one for my father, and one for who I used to be. They didn't show up. I didn't expect them to. But those chairs weren't for them. They were for closure. For the girl who used to wait by the phone, hoping this would be the year she got invited back in. She's not waiting anymore. After the ceremony, June and I walked down the aisle hand in hand, and I didn't look back. Now we live in a modest home with a big yard and a few apple trees we planted ourselves. I still fix wires, still wear the same work boots, still drink black coffee and work on weekends. But now I belong. Not to them, to me. And to anyone listening, if you've ever been left out, written off, or made to feel small just for being yourself, I hope this story reminded you. You don't have to sit at their table to be whole. Sometimes the best revenge is peace. Let me know below. What's the chair you've stopped waiting to be invited into?